dental student at a famous law school in the United States. Okay, I'm making this statement not to litigate the issue of my death, of my wife's passing, with the press, but clearly from the information that I'm getting now, that this is a political case. This is not about finding finding justice for Tony. Okay, so press conference statement on charges against Samuel Jackson following the passing of attorney Ntombikaisi Innocentia Kumalo. My wife was an attorney admitted to the High Court in South Africa. She was a graduate of the University of South Africa, law degrees, BCom and LLB. So the fallacy that my wife was not a lawyer will also will be demolished. But look, good day, ladies and gentlemen. I have called this press conference to update the public on a case involving the tragic and untimely passing of my wife, attorney Ntombikaisi Innocentia Kumalo, otherwise known as Tony Kumalo, and the charges that have since been brought against me. My wife passed away at John F. Kennedy Hospital at approximately 7:20 a.m. on Friday, March 13, after receiving medical care for injuries and complications connected to what have consistently understood to be a medical condition, which was first diagnosed on December 23rd, 2025 at Jamaica General Hospital in New York. My wife had 2 double seizures on Delta Airlines coming from Accra to New York. And the most severe was the one like 45 minutes before the landing of the plane, where she hardly made it. So there was an emergency landing. All airplanes were stopped from landing at the airport at that time so we could land. And the ambulance and emergency personnel came to the aircraft and took my wife to Jamaica General, while I had to go through immigration, take the suitcases to the hotel, and come back to be with my wife, where she was like really out of it. Okay, so that was the one incident from the seizure. The other incident from the seizure was May 28, 2025. That is a 911 report I will give to some of you guys, where my wife, when I was downstairs in my house at 217 Cold Springs Court, where I heard this big sound. I was downstairs. I heard this big sound from one of the bedrooms. I went up there, and my wife was lying down in a pool of blood. I called 911. The emergency medical people came. She came through. She refused to go to the hospital, but you received from the 911 call that my wife hit her head, but this time was on a carpeted floor, and almost the exact same spot where she fell down on May 12th. On March 12th, 2026, here in Liberia, in the bedroom back there. Okay. In 2023, my wife also had an incident at Royal Hotel where she fell on her nose. She injured her nose so badly, she bled for 3 days at AMI Hospital, the Expedition Hospital right by City Hall. You know, the South African hospital there? That's where she stayed. We have the medical record for that. Okay. And on March 9th, while Mr. Dwayne Ben and I were here in the living room, my wife was in the bathroom. We heard a sound, and my wife had fallen and hit her head on the sink. Excuse my language. She pulled all over herself, and we had to, bring her through. He held her, and he asked me to get some cold water, and we brought her. That was like 4 days before her death. Okay. So clearly, ladies and gentlemen, my wife has a medical condition. If there's a trial, we will also prove that her medical condition predates her coming to Liberia. There was incidences in South Africa where the family had to be called on her job when she had an incident, and she was also taken to the hospital. The family is consistently clear that they know me, they know their daughter's history, and I was always informing the mother on incidents involving my wife. Okay. So, Tony did not pass away at home. On March 12th, at approximately 10:30 a.m., when I came from the radio station, don't want to go back too much into it, but I left my house at 8:20. My wife was sleeping. I went to OKFM to have a radio program, kissed my wife on the forehead, and when I came back at 10:20, she was sprawled on the floor in a pool of blood. That's what happened, okay? Okay, so she did not pass at home, okay? When we took her to Catholic, she was there for 7 hours with the diagnosis with brain injury, but Catholic has no neurosurgeon, so we had to wait for Dr. Alvin Joe to get back to JFK, and we couldn't take my wife right away because there was no ambulance at Catholic. The ambulance had broken down, so we had to call an ambulance from as far away as Nizo. We got my wife there. She was examined. The CT scan was given to Dr. Doe, and he said he was going to do his best, but it was a 50-50 chance. So that's what happened. So she did an operation that night. You see the surgical marks on my wife with the black threads. Those were from brain surgery that night. Okay, those were not from a gash to her head by anyone. Okay, so now, not even 2 hours after her passing, heavily armed officers of the Liberian National Police, acting on the order of Inspector General Gregory Coleman, surrounded my residence after earlier sending what appears to be intelligence officers to check around my residence. Ladies and gentlemen, in Liberian history, the death of a spouse has rarely, if ever, resulted in such immediate and forceful police action, especially against an ailing 73-year-old man who had barely begun to mourn his wife. I wish to address the conduct of the Police Inspector General Gregory Coleman in the public handling of the tragic death of Tony Khumalo and the manner in which sensitive material were used to shape public opinion before the facts were properly tested. Inspector General Coleman's public posture appeared to be driven not by settled evidence, but by street gossip, speculation, and a premature narrative that cast an innocent man as guilty before due process could run its course. Images of bruising on my wife, whose source remained unexplained and suspicious, were presented to the public in a manner that invited outrage rather than careful inquiry. Most troubling was the release of intimate and graphic photographs of my wife, including images showing bruises on her chest. Bruises on her chest that are consistent with CPR resuscitation efforts and surgical marks on the back of her head following medical intervention. The decision, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, the decision to expose those images to public view was not an act of justice, transparency, or professionalism. it was deeply harmful. It was a deeply harmful act that violated her dignity and was calculated to inflame public sentiment against me. These actions had the intended effect. While I was detained without access to my phones, computers, or the full ability to respond, at the very moment public anger was being fueled, I was deprived of the tools needed to defend myself, correct falsehoods, or explain the medical and factual context surrounding my wife's injuries. The public now sees more clearly that Inspector General Coleman was not simply following evidence where it led. He was manufacturing a narrative and attempting to make the dilemma. He was trying to make the available information conform. He was manufacturing a narrative and attempting to make the available information conform to it. Once that narrative began to collapse, he faced a dilemma of his own making. Admit that the early accusations were wrong, or continue defending a false position because too much of his public integrity had already been invested in it. You can't change calling me a person of interest, calling me a suspect, detaining me for hours, putting in on social media ghoulish images of my wife with the surgical marks, with the bruises on her chest, and other photographs of unexplained origin. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, he faced the dilemma of his own making. Admit that the early accusations were wrong, or continue defending a false position because too much of his public integrity had already been invested in it. The fear of losing his job, the fear of the Unity partisans who wanted to shut me down. Now they won't have another means to shut me down, and it would be shame on them. On March 14, I was detained for questioning and held in police custody for 3 days. 3 days, during which I was treated first as a person of interest and later as a suspect in my wife's death. The police obtained a search warrant and visited my premises at least 7 times between March 14 and March 16. I'm sure all of you saw them coming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, to the point where my own attorney said, listen guys, you're making yourself look silly. Stop coming to this man's house if you can't find anything. You know what I was coming from? It was coming from information that Gregory Coleman was getting from a friend of my wife who had lesbian interest in my wife, and she was feeding Gregory Coleman this because she was unhappy that my wife, she could not get an opportunity to be with my wife. And every time she saw me in public, she cursed me out. She wanted to fight me. On New Year's Eve, 2023, she had verbally attacked me in front of witnesses at Royal Hotel with my wife. Clearly, she has an obsession with my wife. Her name is in the indictment. The last name is Allison. She calls herself Monique Tattoo. She was the source of the fake intelligence that Gregory Coleman was getting. She had photographs of my bedroom in my old apartment with objects that were blunt objects that could have been used to hit my wife. Those photographs were sent to Mr. Coleman, and the search warrant indicated those items. But when they came to this house, they found none of those. So clearly, ladies and gentlemen, R.G. Gregory Coleman was being fed a lot of malarkey. Okay. So I was detained for questioning and held in police custody for 3 days, during which I was treated as a person of interest. And again, like I said, they visited my house about 7 times. And throughout this process, and I cooperated fully with the police. On March 16, the police ordered an autopsy to be conducted on my wife's remains at St. Moses Funeral Home. If you can recall, my ladies and gentlemen, what did the IG say when the autopsy report was going to be released? 72 hours, am I correct? 72 hours. Well, it's going to 5 months. Where's the autopsy report? Where is the autopsy report? The autopsy was conducted by Dr. Zubong Pate in the presence of several individuals. And the autopsy report that I have, through divine providence, that I have confirmed with authorities at JFK, that this is genuine. We have the names of the people who were present during that autopsy report on March 16, 2026. Okay. So, the representative of the South African embassy declined to enter the room where the autopsy was being conducted and reportedly informed the police that he would accept whatever report they presented. Wow. 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 Why would a representative of the South African embassy refuse to go in the room where the autopsy to be conducted to represent the people of South Africa and the family of Ntombikaisi Innocentia Khumalo? That was his job. That was a dereliction of duty. And that could be probably intentional. That's what they said in the bottom of the place where people were supposed to sign. But you know what I think? I think he was in that room. I think he saw what the doctors were telling him, what the doctor was telling him that day was exculpatory. So 5 months later, the South African embassy, which has a vested interest in this matter, has not requested or demanded Liberian authorities to give them an autopsy report. Okay, after the autopsy was conducted, on March 19, Dr. Pate visited my home. Pate visited my home with senior police officials and asked about the duration. He went to the room. He looked around. He asked me about how long my wife's seizures normally last. 3 to 7 minutes. He nodded. And they were like, we came out, there was some sort of a bonami, friendship. And the police officers that came, the senior police officers, they said to me in front of this man, oh my God, we're in trouble now. It will free the papa here. It will free the papa here. That's what they said. So I went home, not thinking of nothing. And then on April 2nd, they called me when I was at my cousin's house in the Tinker Village area. And they said they wanted us to appear at the police station for whatever. They never told us. But when we got there, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Then I see a phalanx of Gestapo-like soldiers, armed men, coming into the room where I was sitting in the conference room in the first floor of the police station. Grabbed me, handcuffed me, never took me to court, to the magisterial court. Everything was closed. It was the fast and prayer weekend. They did it deliberately to humiliate me, to teach me a lesson. That's why they did it. Because what they were charging me with, clearly manslaughter, is a billable offense. And if they are giving us sufficient notice, we would have filed bond. But Mr. Coleman did not want to see me walk out of that police station. Because he said, and we said, oh, there's no place for anybody to stay at the police station. Can you imagine that? Okay, but anyway, so as I was saying, they came to my house, and I thought I was going to be okay, but then they went and they indicted me. So the charges and the delay in producing reports. Nearly 2 weeks after my wife's passing, the police announced that I had been indicted on several charges. They had about 4 to 5 charges, if you remember. But they later narrowed the charges to manslaughter and negligent homicide. In my view, and in the view of some of my attorneys, including some of them in the United States who are connected to me, these charges are contradictory. If the state claims that I directly caused my wife's death, it cannot at the same time claim that I am culpable only through negligence. These charges, in my opinion, expose the confusion and weaknesses in the government's case. For nearly 5 months, neither the police nor the prosecutors have produced the autopsy and toxicology reports. On Thursday, July 23rd, my lawyers appeared in court seeking presentment from the grand jury proceedings and other evidence, including the autopsy and toxicology report. Guess what? The prosecutor said they did not have the reports, it's not in their file, and the reports are not ready. We should give them another week. Can you imagine that? So on which basis was I indicted? How did they indict me? If you don't have the autopsy, toxicology, and medical report and other documentation, how did you indict me? So then, however, through what I can only describe as divine providence, I received from a stranger a document purporting to be the autopsy report. I have since confirmed with authorities at JFK Hospital that that document is authentic. The document is here. This is the document. And we're going to go on the page with the doctor's signature. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the autopsy report says March 16. It does not say when this report was signed and given to authorities, the prosecutor or the Liberia National Police. Okay. Now, so when I was indicted by the state on April 2nd, 2026, the cause of death was listed as follows. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I want you guys to pay attention, okay? Pay attention to this. The indictment said that the cause of death was as follows: that the laceration observed at the back of the head may have been inflicted by a blunt object as a result of human hit or fall backwards. Let me repeat that. Students of law, students of logic, students of law, students of logic. I didn't go to law school, but my lawyers tell me that's something called causation. The cause of death has to be clear, unambiguous, not guessing. You can't say that the laceration observed at the back of the head may have been inflicted by a blunt object as a result of human hit or fall backwards from a distant height. I will give you the indictment. I will give you the indictment. That's what the indictment says. Okay? This language is uncertain and does not state causation definitively. the words of one of my relatives who was dean of a law school. This is what she said. My life and reputation have been placed in jeopardy on the basis of an indictment that appears to rely on speculation rather than conclusive medical evidence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the document now being presented as the autopsy states that the cause of death was, listen to my people. I want y'all to listen to what they say the cause of death is now. Remember, the indictment says blunt injury to the head, blunt force. The indictment is not saying non-self-inflicted blunt force injuries to the chest and resulting from backwards decelerated injury to the back of the head. Ladies and gentlemen, we took my wife to the hospital. She didn't have any mark on her chest. The only mark on my wife's chest was from the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. For you out there in Radio Land or wherever you are, just ask AI, what does CPR cause injuries to the chest? Does CPR cause injury to the chest? And you will get an answer. Yes, it does. Because you're putting serious pounds of pressure on a body. That's a blunt force injury. That is a blunt force injury. It's a blunt force injury. I took my wife to the hospital. There was no blunt force injury to my wife. The death certificate is here, which I've sent to you guys. And the medical description that the only marks on my wife at that time was where? When they were giving her the drips and the laceration to her head. And when we were praying with my wife in the hospital, when they were putting holy oil on my wife, there were no marks there. So let me tell you what theory I'm gonna give you guys. They didn't find anything on me, but they knew I'm bringing in high-class pathologists and forensic experts to Liberia. So they want to cover up for the malpractice that may have occurred by putting that massive force in my wife's chest that caused injuries to her chest. They're trying to protect themselves. It's a fraternity. This is what I believe. This is what I believe. This is what I genuinely believe. So how can you indict me with a blunt force instrument to the head, and then you have an autopsy report that says blunt force injuries to the chest? Clearly, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm saying this now, in my oh my God, let me see. I gotta. Let me see. Well, let me see if I can charge my phone. Oh my God. Please excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, there you go. Okay. Please hold it. Yeah, great, okay. Okay. So the laceration, the blunt force to the head is no longer blunt force to the head, that blunt force to the chest now. Okay, so gentlemen, like I said, my life and reputation have been placed in jeopardy on the basis of an indictment that appears to rely on speculation rather than conclusion. So they have a choice. They have a choice to amend the indictment to correspond with the narrative. But ladies and gentlemen, if they do that, you know they have no case. And we want them to do that, to amend the indictment. We want them to, because now if the indictment is based upon chest injuries, we didn't put any chest injuries on my wife. The doctors at Kennedy did with blunt force on the CPR. And they said it in their own report. They used CPR to try to resuscitate her. Did they use adequate pressure? My wife was just about 112, 114 pounds. How much force did they put on that weak chest? If you look at CPR, they say it breaks the ribs, it breaks the sternum, and it causes massive bruises on the chest. Those are the massive bruises on the chest that you guys saw that caused many of you to think that I have beaten my wife. Those are CPR. So, ladies and gentlemen, the document now presented states that in his expert opinion is unnatural, homicidal. The pattern of the blunt force injuries to the chest and severe head injuries are due to non-self-inflicted injuries. The pattern of injury is very inconsistent with seizure injuries. Can you imagine this guy? Hospital observed no such bruises. The only bruising we are aware of on her chest resulted from CPR performed by the medical team at JFK Hospital. I was not finished. Ladies and gentlemen, we are bringing this matter to the public attention, not to free me. No, I ain't got power to be free. They have the government. They run the court system. They can influence the jury. They have the power. They have the money. I've run out of money. Tens of thousands of dollars I've already paid, legal fees and medical fees. I'm bringing a pathologist here in a few days that calling me thousands of dollars. I have to continue to support my family. I have to continue to support Tony's family in South Africa. I have to give them what they need. Mother is elderly, retired, and I have to help them. So I don't have money to fight them. They may put me in jail still and throw the keys away. Because they have the power to do that. If they have the power to fabricate an autopsy report, if they have the power to fabricate an autopsy report, if they have the power to take me to jail, okay, without letting me be afforded bond, if they have the power to bring dozens of police officers to surround my house a few hours after my wife's death, they can do anything to me. They can do anything to me. My life is in their hands. Okay? But the public must know that this is an attempt to railroad me. And now faces the dilemma. How does it reconcile the stated cause of death in the indictment with the conclusions in this purported autopsy report? If the indictment must be amended nearly 5 months after my wife's death, that will raise even more questions about whether the initial indictment was brought in good faith and whether it was based on speculation and later adjusted to fit a preferred narrative. If the authorities amend the indictment, the public will have every reason to question whether the autopsy report is being used to repair a flawed case. The other child of mine can really rattle. The public should watch carefully for further maneuvers. If a damaging autopsy report truly existed from the beginning, why was it not released in the first week as promised? Why has it still not been officially released after nearly 5 months? If they had a damaging autopsy report on me, you don't think Gregory Cuomo would have put his full emblazoned ceremonial uniform on and be shaking it? They didn't. But you know what I really believe? About 30 days ago, when the drug thing started, I went back on Spoon. I went back on Facebook. I started to talk again because Gregory Cuomo saw a relative of mine. And the first thing he said, oh, the papa stayed talking here. And we'll go to court. We'll bring that relative. That's what he said. The papa stayed talking. And this relative, sharp as a knife, he said, but was this intended to keep him, to shut him up? That's what he said. That's what the police director said. The papa stayed talking, eh? Oh, we got an autopsy report now. Now? Think you can scare me? You can't scare me. I'm 74 years old. Anything you want to do to me, you can do it to me. But after today, it will be clear to the Liberian public that this is not about justice. This is a miscarriage of justice. So, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, so this is not, in my view, a genuine pursuit of justice. It appears to be an effort by those in power to punish me for my political views. I cannot fight the full power of the state alone, but I can expose those actions to the Liberian people and inform the public of what may come next. Finally, this is not about Sam Jackson. We must all remember that nearly 5 months have elapsed, and the autopsy reports has not still been officially released. My wife's body remains in a freezer, approaching 150 days. This is cruel and unnecessary. It has caused untold grief to her mother, Eliza Kumalo, and to her entire family. For what purpose? To prove what? To do what? To do what? To do what? To put an old man in jail? To put an old man in jail? You do something to put an old man in jail? What? A 74-year-old man. You try to railroad him for your political objective? You are afraid of this moth? I'm not a lion. I'm not a tiger. I don't go out there or say, let's go demonstrate. I use my mouth. I use my brains. I use my head. And I do critical analysis. I do critical analysis. And I tell my water, because my water that educated me. And I tell him. And I defer with the government. I defer with the alien government. I defer with the we are government. And I defer with the Joseph Walker government. What does it cost them? I'm running my mouth, an old man running his mouth in Gate Town. What does that do to them? Are they afraid of this mouth? So what are you afraid of? What are you hiding? On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. It's tough living in this house all by myself. This house has the upstairs and the downstairs. I'm in this house all by myself. So I want to thank you for coming and let God bless you. I will take maybe 3 questions and then that'll be it. Anybody has any question? Well, if you don't have any, okay, go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, my name is Arena Economist. Because I listened to you reading the press statement, and you are saying that the police RG indicted you.
I didn't say the police RG. The police RG presented evidence to the prosecutor, because that's the process.
Yes, to the prosecutor, and is saying different things what the autopsy report.
No, I never said that. Let me just repeat.
Okay.
I said the indictment, which was done in the court by the state prosecutors, says one thing, that I hit my wife on the head. Then this what I have as the purported autopsy, which I have confirmed with authorities at JFK to be genuine, says totally different thing that I hit her in the chest, blunt force to the chest. That's what I want to say to you. Okay.
Okay. So what specific message do you want to send out to the government and the Liberian people?
It's in my statement. It's in my statement. I'll release a statement to the press and people can read what the message is. That's it.
My name is Giant Tomena, for Farmbase. I'm concerned you name in your intro you mentioned that political witch hunt.
Yeah.
And given the fact that you're able to exhaust all the legal process and that of a medical bill associated with this alleged murder case.
It's not murder,
manslaughter case. What do you think that the government, because I listen to you highlighting the father, they want, in your ending statement, said they want you to shut up. What do you think that the government is so much after Mr. Sam Jackson, the economist, not a, like you said, not the lion?
So go ask Mo Ali why he attacks me every day. Go ask Samuel Nama why they attack me every day. Go ask all the surrogates of the Unity Party why they come at me every day. They don't come for us to have a discussion about the country. They attack me. They attack my education. They attack me because I wear polo t-shirts. They attack me because I eat my fufu. They attack everything but the issue. And the real reason why this is coming to a head is because I've been vocal for the last 30 days. I've been very vocal the last 30 days. And I told you, a relative of mine saw the IG, and the IG, the first thing he said to him, oh, the Papa talking again, oh. And I can show you messages in my phone from government officials. Papa, just leave the thing alone. We'll fix it. We'll fix it. Just be quiet. Just be quiet. I have messages in my phone. I have messages in my phone. They say, Papa, just be quiet. Just leave the thing alone. We'll fix it. We'll fix it. But this is not about fixing. This is about the truth. You got a woman in a freezer going to 5 months. Going to 5 months. So what is that? I don't want you to fix anything. I want you to pursue the truth. That's what I want you to do. I want you to present truthful documents so that the family in South Africa, they can have closure on what happened to their daughter. That's important for me. It's not about my guilt or innocence. I mean, I know I didn't do anything. The police know I didn't do anything. Of course they know that because they did an autopsy. And it was clear that it was exculpatory. Now they're manufacturing their something. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
One last question. Follow up my question. During the police or when they barricaded the house, and people are concerned, I think on the last podcast about a statement you made about a young man. Yeah. How do you see
I
that
have apologized for that statement. I said it. I was temporarily insane. If my wife dies and I see paratroopers surrounding my house, that was temporary insanity. I have apologized to the Salif family. I was not in Liberia in 1985. I was not. I was having a stellar career on Wall Street. Everybody knows that. But sometimes when you're angry and when you go out of your head, you can say something crazy. So I apologize. I have apologized to the Salif family out there. You're normal. I beg you, all my people. I'm going to do it. Even there, Vani, the whole family. I'm sorry. I said that. But because I said that does not make me guilty of doing what the police is accusing me of. And I was not in Liberia. Temporary insanity is a legal defense. So that's all I have to say.
So, Mr. Jackson, I'm Pio Smoke and I report for the Homeland TV and that of the Informer. From the entire incident, from the onset of the incident where you came, you took you made your wife lie, you pulled her blood, taking her to the hospital, and moments later, you were on social media and posting that people should keep you in prayer, your wife are in terrible condition. Before.
And I ate a fufu. And I ate a fufu.
No,
but wait now. So
later,
I didn't eat no fufu. No. I will cut you off and I want it. Okay, but go ahead. Answer your question.
You post moment later, you say you call ambulance, and what do you think you are done differently?
No,
the case?
I did nothing wrong. My brother, we told you, we wrote a statement. That's why I want you to go read the statement, okay? I met my wife laying in a pool of blood. I called my hospital staff. We took her to the hospital. We have 5 cars here. We took her straight to Cali Hospital. We're not waiting for no ambulance. The ambulance we're waiting for was the ambulance from Catholic Hospital to JFK. Cali Hospital ambulance broke down. Cali Hospital broke down. We had to call an ambulance way from the zoo. It took 45 minutes to come. So we took my wife in the car. And then there's a gentleman here whose my wife's hair was in a lab. We took her to the hospital. From here, we didn't wait for nothing. I didn't eat that fufu till 30 hours later. Way on a Friday around 4, 5 o'clock when my wife had been there since 7:20. But when they jumbled all the images together, it's like as soon as I came from the hospital, I started eating fufu right away. First of all, when I came from the hospital, I had to go get ready for financial transactions to send my wife. There was a client that called me and said, I owe you some money. Come to Royal Hotel. And I went. I did the invoice. And I will show you the check of $25,000 that client paid me that I deposited on that day at Royal Hospital. It took us like 45 minutes. I was very nervous doing the invoice. I didn't eat that fufu till way in the evening. And I didn't even eat more than 2 spoons. I didn't have the appetite. But yes, certain things look bad to people, but you have to look at the context, you have to look at the reality. So, my people, eating fufu caused my wife death? That eating fufu bring the police to come to my house in the morning? That the fufu that brought the police to the house? That the fufu that brought, you tell me now, that the fufu that brought the police to come to the house?
Maybe.
How it can be, when I ate it at 4 o'clock, they came at 9 o'clock. Eh? They came in the morning, my wife died at 7:20, they were here before 9 o'clock. And I ate the fufu way in at 4 o'clock. So how can the fufu, so what they were thinking I was going to eat fufu at 4 o'clock, so they came, that's why they came to stop me from eating fufu? Now, I'm not listening. We said enough, no, listen to me. We said enough, this is a legal matter, and I think I've answered all your questions. Everything that I've said is stated very clearly in here. Like I said, I had legal advice. There's a relative of mine who helped me to draft this statement. Okay, she's a dean at a major law school. Okay, so also my legal counsel is aware of it. Counselor Cephas is aware of it. Okay, and also and then